I'm just kidding. Don't say nothing. Okay, we're live. Okay, we're live. Okay. Hi, Aaron. Welcome to Venture with Grace.
Thank you. Great to be here.
To start with the show, I want to congratulate you on being on our Smart AI 100 list, and also you successfully raised right after our list again. So let's start with let's start with like your early career lesson. So you were a product manager at Pebble. Like actually, the Pebble watch was my favorite before the Apple Watch, which I don't really wear any watch right now, but like just putting it out there. Why don't we talk about like the lessons that you learned as a product leader at these different companies before you created your own company Outset?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It is obviously 100% causation, not correlation, that we were on the Smart 100 list and then we raised around 100% causation.
Clip this, people.
Clip this, yeah. I know you will, Grace. No, I'm just kidding. Well, actually, my career actually started before Pebble. I was actually at an agency, a consulting firm, doing a lot of research for big kind of Fortune 500 clients. I was like the researcher, the bottom of the totem pole analyst who was doing all the manual work, and that like actually gave me a deep understanding of like how we learn from humans and how we build around them and design for them. So that like wound up influencing the rest of my career. And very much influenced what we wound up starting at Outset. So I always like to like start there. Actually, before that, I spent a year as a tour manager for a band, but that's a side story.
You just want to put it out there.
I just want to put it out there. It's always like it's my fun fact. But anyways, so the like Pebble is one of these like So today, if you ask people at Pebble, they have to have been in tech for a little while, right? Like to remember those days.
You're saying I'm old?
No, I mean obviously me too. But the new generation of techies don't remember Pebble, but it was the original smartwatch, right? It was the thing that invented the category. And I think like so that's where I really started my product career. So I've learned a bunch of lessons throughout. I kind of went from working on Pebble, which was a new category, a new hardware, a new software, a new user interface, like everything new to the world. And then I went from there. I then went to Tesla, where I was working on also net new to the world. I was working on like, how do you understand where in the world you can get to with a Tesla to overcome range anxiety? It's like very new. And then I spent, and after that, like I was at enterprise software leading product and design, and very different lessons about how do you kind of build for big customers and how do you build a machine that can kind of continue to innovate while you're serving large organizations. So you kind of like had a bunch of phases. But I think the thing about the Pebble and Tesla experience was this idea that like you're creating a new category in the world, which creates this like kind of like this mix of you're hyper tuned to customer feedback, but you also have to invent stuff. And like inventing is not just an exercise in customer feedback. And so I think like a lot of what I took away from those days was like very, very first principles that like that's pretty much like when you are putting something new in the world, you need to listen hard to customers, but you then need to invent the things. And I think that's like a very different motion than trying to incrementally improve an existing category. And that winds up obviously as we start a company, we did the same thing where we created a new category. And so we really had to think about that from first principles.
Totally. Okay. So speaking of thinking first principle, let's talk about Outset. So you guys are doing like recruiting and lead like research, and maybe we could start with like what the product does, and then maybe we could talk about like the insight that you've learned before starting the company and after starting the company.
Yeah. So we started Outset back in early 2023, and what it is it's an AI moderated research platform. So I'll explain what that means in a moment. But we were the first. We created this. It's a new category of research, and I'll talk all about that. If you're not in the world of research, either UX research or brand or market research or things like that, to take a step back, when you want to go answer a question like, is this product good? Or should we go enter this new market? Those questions usually require some primary research where you go listen to people. And you generally have had to pick between surveys, which are, and we've all done surveys, they are like a blunt instrument where you can get a lot of people to hit, one button, right? Like A, is the answer. And so you don't get a lot of depth. You don't get a lot of high fidelity. You don't really understand the context of their answer, but you get scale, right? You get speed. You can get answers quickly. Or people have done a ton of qualitative research, thinking like one-on-one interviews, right? Or focus groups or things like that. And those have been incredibly expensive, very time consuming, and very, very hard to scale. I mean, nobody's ever doing more than 20 or 30 interviews. And if you ever hear somebody saying they do 100, then it's like either not real or they're doing it over 6 months, right? So the reality is we've had to make this terrible trade-off when you're trying to answer an important question. And what we did is we put AI in the moderator seat. So now we can conduct that in-depth qualitative conversation to elicit that like really useful feedback from a participant. And by doing that and by building a platform around it, we've now enabled this new thing called AI moderated research. You can mix quantitative, data in there, qualitative data. We do usability features where you can have people share their screens and give feedback on your product. And then we use AI to synthesize all that data at the end. So you can do 500 interviews in a matter of a day to get big, large-scale feedback, both quantitative, qualitative, on what you need to know. So that's what we built, and we now work with everybody from Microsoft and Nestle and Uber and kind of the biggest brands in the world to help them answer those questions.
For sure. I have so many questions there. So like one is like, let me just show his platform. So like one is like, so basically the thing is like still conducted by human, right? So like human go on there and then be like talking to the people who are being interviewed. So like, for example, I am a user of HubSpot. I love HubSpot. They're our amazing partner. So if you are a startup, you want to register HubSpot program, like use my link. I will put it down below. So the thing is like, so for example, I am a user of a company here. And then like, so what does a flow kind of look like for me? And then like do you have scheduling these people as well?
Yeah,
so, like,
it's a great question. So if you're a user, so you're a customer of ours and you're going in and you want to do market research or UX research or kind of whatever kind, you create a study and then you can recruit participants directly from us, right? So you don't even have to go find your own users.
Product. You want to showcase a product? You can
sure.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll keep it pretty straightforward. Yeah. Let's see. All right. Sorry, I was not prepared here. Okay. So I'll just show a few bits, but when you go to create, and this is a concept test, we're testing a new kind bar. It's just a fun concept test. I'm going to skip ahead and show you what it's like to recruit. So I'll take a step back in a moment. But when you recruit, you can actually target and find people directly through our panel partners in the platform, which means you can say, I want to talk to people who live in the suburbs with a particular kind of financial situation, who have used this product in the last 30 days. Right. And you can target them here. You can build out a screener with questions about their demographics or questions about kind of, what they've used in the last 30 days, and then ship it. And that all happens in the platform. So you don't even have to think about who you're targeting. Right. So that's kind of how recruitment operates. But actually, like before you even get there, when you create a new study, I'll just show you kind of, you actually can kind of do everything from standard AI interviews, which is like the core of what we've built, and we'll get into that. And you could do usability tests, which is all about screen sharing, right? And that's where you're able to have people actually engage with prototypes and watch how they do it and all that kind of stuff. And then you can do text or voice or video or voice to voice, which basically means that you are like, what are the modalities that you're having AI engage with participants? Like, are you collecting their video? Are you collecting their voice? Is AI speaking or is AI just giving text, right? You kind of have every customizable option because like AI models can do all this now, right? And then we we use AI to help build your guide. And that's where you're like, you can either upload like a PDF you already have or like a Word doc you already have that we just turn into an Outset interview and just run it for you. Or you can use our templates, or you can generate with AI, or you can build it yourself. So anyways, I don't want to get too deep into the product demo unless you want to keep pointing me in a direction. But this is like how you kind of get started.
I was starting to think about like what people do in the past is like you have to create these like questionnaire from like the marketing team, right? So like marketing team be like, hey, like our potential demographic is I don't know, like people age like 18 to 35 who is working out, blah 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 blah, and then they ran a bunch of ads on Facebook. So that's like how the past like marketing have done, or like the product research have done, and then like maybe I guess like you just out like do people just like, first of all, like where do you get the data? Is that like from the company themselves, or like is this like you have to buy data, or like you have to scrape data, or like how does that kind of like work? So how do you know like who to kind of like target to, and then how do you know I was using your product in the last like 3 weeks?
I mean, this is our customers, our users are the ones that hold that and know that, right? And so that we use AI to like take what they need to get out of this, right? So if a researcher or designer comes to Outset, they know what they're trying to test, right? And they know I want recent users, right? So we don't, and then what, from there, we have a screener that we use. We have targeting within the panel partners that we use to find the right people. And then of course, a lot of our customers recruit on their own. They reach out to their own users, right? They use pop-ups in their app to engage with users. They send mass emails, right? Like whatever the case is, they then reach out to their users, right? And then do find them that way. And so this is really winds up being a tool to take a person that has an important question, knows who they need to ask and knows what they need to ask at a high level, and then take that question and then deliver an answer in a matter of a day, where that used to take 2 months.
Okay. So I was wondering, so like for that, like so if you're like taking, so for example, if I'm like Nestle, I don't want to use a particular client of yours to be an example, but like let's say I'm making the new Kind bar, like and then like, so when do I come to you? Like, and then in the past I have done user research like at like other people's company, and like just literally like like just like manually testing their physical product or whatever. So for that, like, so since you mentioned there's like a few different type of tests, so like there's text, there is like a conversation, there's like other stuff, like I guess. Okay, so I have like so many questions. One is like, how does the money flow in this entire industry? How much are people actually spending on testing?
Okay.
things?
Yeah. So there. Just to play back the questions, I think there's one about like when do they come to Outset? Like when in the flow do they come to Outset? Number two is what about this? Like what about in real life testing? What if you're testing something physical, right? And maybe you'll have to help me. But number three is like how does the money flow in the industry? Okay. I love, by the way, number three. I've learned all about the industry. Like there's no better way to learn about an industry than to like go start a company in it, right? And I was already a part of the industry, but I like not deep in it like I am now. So I'll talk about that in a moment. So people come to us it actually varies. Sometimes people come to us, like our big users, they know they have Outset. They use Outset all the time. A new question pops up from an executive, a new question pops up from the product team, or they just get that place in the project where they have a design, they want to test it. All of those moments, they say, okay, I need to get primary research. I go to Outset. Sometimes they're actually reviewing all of our synthesis of all your past studies and chatting with the data and asking questions. And actually what pops up is like, you still don't know this area. Go do more research, right? So it's actually like we can actually help inform where you need to do research. But the trigger points are actually pretty like, they're pretty standard, right? Like you need to go get an answer to the question. Or sometimes somebody else needs an answer to the question. They ask you to do it, right? So it's usually that. And it is usually started by a person logging into Outset. It's really common. Now, we have lots of types of research. We actually have a bunch of companies doing in real life. We call it IRL testing, right? You want to test something, but it requires the physical world. And so this is why we have video, is to do things like that. So we have a bunch of examples of people holding up products or showing their living room or, even people shopping, right? So as they shop, they have their camera on and they can talk and AI can ask questions. So it's a huge, like, as you think, a lot of our viewers are probably in the tech world and digital properties, but like, a huge part of our, world is obviously the physical world. And so like, think about, just to give you an example, like Nestle has 2,000 brands, 2,000 different brands. Every one of brands has been heavily researched. And every time they come out with the new version of, I don't know, new flavor of Oreos, I don't think it's a Nestle brand, but you get my point. Every new flavor, new iteration, that is tested. So, before we think that like, oh, the only, the main kind of research is in digital, it's actually huge to do stuff in physical. And that's everything from surveys and concept tests all the way to in real life testing, product testing at home. They try the Oreo and you want to find out how it was, or they come to your lab because you're trying, like it covers the gamut. So that's IRL testing is actually a big thing. Will continue to be something we're working on into next year because it's really exciting.
So, first of all, if you guys are testing Oreos, please call me. I will be there.
Yeah, right. Like we have not yet done Oreo testing. We've done real world testing stuff where our team has gotten involved. So I love it. I cannot tell you about it, obviously.
I was wondering, so like for the IRL, like how do you like do the AI part of it? And like also like for all the research, like how do you benchmark success? Like, so for example, people probably want to be like, demonstrate that you can generate like X amount of revenue. If they do test, like they generate X, and then like if they don't do test, like they generate like maybe half of X or whatever. Like,
yeah, it's a really good question of basically how do you use research to model out results, to model out revenue, and like there is still human behavior is an anathema. It is complicated. Like there is no perfect answer there. So you can use large scale quantitative data, which you can collect through Outset, to obviously say, well, they say that they prefer brand A over brand B, right? But like, so that may actually be predictive of some revenue. If you know the revenue of brand B and you know that people want brand A more and brand A is new, you can start modeling. But the reality is, you also have the challenge of what do people say versus what they do, which is actually why qualitative data is so useful. Because on a multiple choice, they might say, well, yeah, like I prefer to buy brand A. But once you get them talking and in their own voice, in their own house and on video, they may say something like, yeah, like I prefer brand A, but only when I travel. Right. And that's what I thought that's what you meant. Right. So you suddenly realize that like what people express, like the kind of the lower fidelity, their response, the more risk there is that you don't really know what they're thinking. And so it's why getting qualitative data, real spoken, data at such scale is such a big deal. Right. It's kind of that people call it like the say-do gap, what someone says versus what they do, and that those are different things. So anyways, there's no silver bullet for modeling out future human behavior. If we could perfectly do that, that's that's obviously a massive thing, and it's stuff we're all working on. But yeah.
So if I'm like a brand, I come up to like, so okay, so I also want to point out that like you guys have so many different kind of brands out there. So like, for example, there's like, Coinbase, there's like Microsoft, Uber. Those are like the tech brands. There's Nestle, there's like other, more of like a traditional physical goods brand. And when you kind of like do different testing, so like, I think you addressed part of the question earlier on like when do they come to you, and then like, so how do they spend, like is it like a yearly budget on like testing everything, and then you just be like, oh each month we'll do X, Y, and Z, and then it's like a retainer, or like would it be like result outcome based stuff, like hey, we're gonna run like 10 tests on like major 5 projects. And for the I guess like touch point of like the bigger company like a Google or whatever, like obviously they have so many departments, like how do you kind of like enter the right department on the right stuff?
There's so many questions there. Okay, so no, you're good. So first to touch on like we have brands, as you mentioned, Microsoft, Uber, but then you also have Nestle there, right? And like so why is that, right? Like I think actually like a really interesting thing I really figured out, because I had my own experience doing research, but as I like went broad and started learning from everybody in the early days of Outset, like the core problems of research are incredibly consistent no matter what industry you're in, right? The hard part is how do you like get ground truth from humans quickly? That's it. That's the only thing that matters. Ground truth, like what's really true in human behavior. How do you get it from them? How do you do it quickly? And like that is so common that the same core infrastructure we've built is wildly useful across them, because it's like, again, Nestle, you're trying to figure out which concept is going to be the most effective in the market, which fits the brand best, which actually has the right packaging, all that. And Uber, you're trying to figure out the right flows and the right product design. Like it's still the same underlying problem. Now we've built all of these features that are purpose built for these different use cases, but the core tech, the core kind of foundation of our product is really like is what's the word? Agnostic to what vertical it's in. So that's why. In terms of the commercials, so in research, there's like, it's actually a very large industry. It's like $140 billion. The reality is that those dollars wind up flowing in many different directions. There's not like a single way that it all works, right? We generally work with our enterprise customers on large scale kind of enterprise agreements, right? Which means it's an annual kind of agreement. There often are, especially when you're talking about recruitment, right? You're paying participants to do research. That usually has some component of, ad hoc or in certain kind of times you need to re-up and all that kind of stuff, right? There's an ongoing consumption-based element to the commercials as well. And then, there's often services elements to it too. And so we step in and can help our customers in various ways, but we also work with agencies that step in and help their clients. So there's kind of it's a pretty, I don't know, it's a lot of moving kind of dollars moving around in various ways. But ultimately, like, a large enterprise wants to enable people with this underlying technology. So it's that simple. Like, it's ultimately, like that. I think going after, you mentioned some of the big techs have very distributed budget. I mean, yeah, every one of them is different. So I used to be a product person, and then I suddenly became a salesperson. And so maybe another podcast, but like enterprise sales is a whole universe and of learnings.
For sure. I feel like everyone becomes a salesperson when you become the CEO.
Well, yeah, my co-founder is the CTO. He's not, you know what I mean? Like, and my assumption going in, this would be like such a fun product exercise of starting a company. Yeah, I'll probably have to do sales too. Flip that, right? Like, I'm doing all of my time with customers, and it's both product discovery and sales. But like, yeah, that's a real rude awakening, but it's also very fun. And like, I've now gotten very into sales.
I love that. Okay, so like, there's two LinkedIn user questions. Maybe we kind of address them before we jump into the next segment.
Yeah.
So like, the LinkedIn user is saying that, really appreciate the insight shared today. How do you position Outset AI in the market when customer compare it to both traditional research tools and newer AI native platforms? I would say you guys are AI native.
We are AI. I mean, AI native just means like we were born of the AI age. We were around AI.
You started like 2 years ago.
Yeah. We started we actually incorporated before ChatGPT moment, but like GPTs were out, so we were playing with those. So we're very much AI native. How do we position around well, I guess I'll answer both. How do we position around incumbents or the traditional ways to do research? I think that's been like this incredibly fun exercise in like helping people understand what is possible and where they've been constrained, right? This is like somewhat counterintuitive, but everybody's like, when you're starting a company, go find the problem that's the most hair on fire, right? But like, we didn't really do that because people weren't like, hair on fire, I must have an AI moderated research tool, right? They didn't know, right? So instead, they did the traditional way, and we articulated to them all the limitations of the traditional way and imagine if, right? The kind of that framing, imagine if. And so really like the positioning around incumbents is like, it's really better, faster, cheaper. And we get to say all that at once. It's like a classic AI native startup thing, but like, it's better because you can hit scale. It's faster because you don't need to single thread interviews and schedule them all. You're just doing them all at once. And it's cheaper because the actual cost for delivering the project, everything from the building out the discussion guides and designing the study to recruitment to analysis, is all cheaper. And so we get to have a better, faster, cheaper. And then we also get to, and this is my favorite part, is say, because it is cheaper and faster and better, we can now enable your organization to be more customer centric. So in other words, it's like, because we've lowered the hurdle to doing research, everybody in your company can do more. You can listen better to your customers. You can hear from them more. So I think that like, that's really like a huge part of what matters to our customers. At the end of the day, what are the boards, what's the board at Nestle care about? It's like, are we fast? Are we responsive to the work, to the needs of the market? Are we fast to go address them? So if we can be that for them, that's a huge unlock. So that's I think how we position against incumbents. Did you want to jump in before we get to other?
Yeah. So I was wondering, so like for the technology side, like what is the technology moat? So like, is it like, so I hope you don't take it offensively, but like, let's say if I just use ChatGPT and then like turning this meeting notes, like I use like a meeting note taker and then we yap for like 30 minutes. And then like I took this and then I like asked ChatGPT to generate like a summary of like 10 meetings. And then like basically it's just like you are using one AI agent to summarize meeting. You use another AI agent to summarize the trends from these meetings, and then you kind of like generate a result. Like, is this that? Or like, how do you like what is a more sophisticated, or I would assume this is more sophisticated than that, but what is the nuance between like what is a technology mode on this? And then like, do you feel like it's a technology mode, or do you feel like it's like a operational mode? Like how do you like, I guess like how does this company different than like, if like a person just used ChatGPT?
Well, let me. There's a lot in that question. It's a very
Loaded question.
it's a very VC question, and hence the venture with Grace. The it harkens back to when we were raising our seed round. It was a is this a rapper? Right, that was the question. Remember,
Everyone's a rapper essentially, but like
everybody's a rapper. No, but I mean, like I think there's something worth digging into here. So, Anthropic recently actually announced that they built an AI interviewer.
oh.
Yeah, they did. They did. And it made the rounds. Then a bunch of people tried it and they're like, oh. Right? Because there's a bunch of I don't mean to like it's I don't mean to publicly disparage them in any way, but like it's one of these things, and a lot of places in AI are like this. It's easy to build a demo and it's hard to build a product. Right? Because a demo says, can I, in the best of cases, in the most simple ways, in the most kind of basic terms, can I make it work? Yes, AI is amazing at that. Then you get like when we sell, to a sprawling organization like Microsoft, it got everything from the quality of the interview itself to the customizability of how people manipulate it and how they prompt it, how they have the AI interviewer behave with certain conditions, to how we synthesize in a way that's like actually designed for that company, to how you orchestrate a multiple kind of teams and layers. It's like winds up being a robust platform. Like it is a platform. But like at a most basic level, think about this. Like you could use ChatGPT and throw a transcript in there and you can get some insights. Great. Couple of problems is how do you actually run interviews? Well, you can't tell ChatGPT to like go reach out to someone. You can't actually spin up an instance of ChatGPT to actually interact with somebody else. You definitely can't have ChatGPT run video, voice, kind of multimodal interviews with them. Right. And then you can't, it would be an immense amount of work to build all that infrastructure, then build the kind of the multi-agent system that we have to make a good interviewer that's aligned to what you want. You'd have to do so much work. You're just building another product. And you can see incumbents are starting to our space and they're not very good yet. And so I think that's my quick answer. I mean, we could go into more details of where there are like data moats and technical moats and operational moats, but I think the higher level point is like, it's easy to build a demo. It's hard to build a great product. And our product gets increasingly valuable for a customer the more they use it. And like, if that's true, and if it's sticky in the enterprise, it's sticky in their workflows, then like you've built a really good kind of solid foundation.
I wonder, okay, so like maybe we address another like customer like to use the question. So reliability of data is a core issue with research.
So I now finally figured out how to see the comments, so I can now see them. Sorry. So reliability is a huge thing. So a researcher will look at the data and of course should be the ones to challenge it. Is it reliable, right? Is this, are we asking the right questions? Is it answered the right way? Are we synthesizing it in a kind of unbiased fashion? So the way we approach it is like we have AI just elicit real human feedback over video, and that every time we're telling you anything about the data, there's like one click between what we're telling you and the actual person saying the actual thing. Because what the person says is ground truth, right? It is by definition what they think. Now, with the interviewer itself, you can customize the interviewer to be much more, call it supportive and warm and engaging, or you can be more, call it kind of a more purist about it and say no emotion, right? Like be
Wait, so the
totally neutral.
interviewer is like human or AI?
AI.
It's all AI. So, but can I tell it's AI or can I?
So you we tell you it's AI. We're not trying to pull one over on you. I actually think, in fact, we have found telling people it's AI make them share more, because there's like it's the confessional booth effect. You know,
Oh,
you actually feel there isn't a
yeah.
human. What's that?
Okay. I said it's true. I mean, I confess. If anyone hack like ChatGPT, I'm fucked. But like, yeah, so don't
So
do
so
that.
so anyways, I mean the reliability is just like a huge thing. And so like as long as we're grounded in what the people really say and we give you the controls to collect it in a super unbiased way, then like, the ultimately it's like, that's about as reliable as you can get, right? It's the real thing that people say. And then we have a bunch of fraud detection to make sure that all the people that are coming in and giving their feedback are in fact who they say they are. We have AI fraud detection, which is really cool. We have like quality controls, which I could tell, but I also see another comment here just to dovetail it to the other one, which is, does it make sense to pay for research? So paying participants or users to fill out your surveys or give feedback, does that guarantee quality? So this is like just a human conundrum. If you want data, right, you often have to pay for it. So, there's another version where you put a little pop-up in your app and you give it an NPS and you say 1 out of 10. What do you think of it? And
Like,
people can
that's
click it.
just really bad. I'm sorry. Like, I hate the 1 to 10. It's like, what does that give me? Like, I mean,
Right. So
I
it is actually silly. I actually think the whole thing so NPS, we just all kind of agreed to it, but nobody loves it, or very few people love it. And because we've all agreed to it as a kind of as
Mhm.
technologists or really society, because we all agreed to it, that metric is very meaningful to an organization. Like
Mhm.
literally there are executives who are comped based on NPS. There are, people whose jobs change based on NPS. It is a huge thing. The problem is, just like the way I described earlier, if somebody gives you a multiple choice answer, that is not giving you the real answer.
Mhm.
And so you have a huge gap, right? You just have this one number. And so then the problem about paying people is like, well,
Mhm.
if you're not paying them, how much time can you get them to spend giving you data?
Mhm.
And so to this comment, like it's hard, but if you ask kind of, the experienced researchers out there, you basically just have to know what, whether you're paying them or not when you're thinking about the results. You have to incorporate that prior into your analysis.
Mm.
Cool. Should I
Uh,
keep doing comments, or do you want to keep running the show and tell me when to
I
jump in there?
oh God, another one. You know what? Like, let's do this guy, and then like, well, sorry, I don't know if you're a guy or a girl. Hi, LinkedIn user. Hi, my amazing audience. Okay, so an AI HR product startup, trust, authenticity are always top of mind for us. How does Outset operationalize research authenticity at scale so customer can confidently act on insight, not just export them? That's a good question.
Yeah. So I think like it kind of comes down to some of the things I've talked about. There's the authenticity of the person. So is
Right.
the research participant, are they authentic? And that's where it comes. We have great panels. Or panels are just the companies that help aggregate. We have a
Mhm.
bunch of partners. I think we have over 20 different partners that we bring in to help find research participants. It's their job and ours to make sure they are who they say they are. They're not
Mhm.
fraudulent, right? They're high quality, and we have a lot of technology in place, as do they, to make sure that's the case. So that's kind of like step one is like that. Step two is the data collection good, right? And that's where we allow you to customize your AI moderator, AI interviewer. We allow you to like build out a very complex guide with skipping conditions and, like lots of probing or small amount of probing, and you have all these controls to collect the data in the way you want.
Mhm.
Right. And then you have the synthesis of that data. And that's, I think, maybe what this LinkedIn user is talking about. Like, then we take all this data. What do you do with 200 qualitative interviews to make use of them?
Mhm.
And I think that's honestly a really interesting product and design question that we've been, grappling with for years, right? Is what's the best way to display in-depth qualitative research, but at large scale, right? And so it's through a combination of quantitative analyses, right? Where we say, okay, we're looking at 200 interviews. We
Mhm.
can tell you a big theme. It came up in 75 of them.
Mhm.
And then immediately we build out, AI builds a highlight reel of precise quotes and clips, and attaches it to that theme, right? We allow you to dig in. We also allow you to edit that theme because you actually want to articulate it differently and rerun it, right? So it's a kind of our core belief is that if we give you all of the data in a bunch of different ways and let you manipulate in the way you want and get the output they need, then that is in fact authentic, right? Because that's you're pulling raw data and you're presenting it in the way you need. But it's a good question. I mean, that's always the kind of like the product kind of development is never over on how do we take lots of unstructured data that is meant to be subjective and make it incredibly actionable. Like it's always going to be a place to keep working.
I love that. So like, okay, so speaking of scale, like thank you for asking. Okay, so basically, okay, so what is like one thing that you feel like, okay, so I always ask these like two question in a row kind of questions, so like be prepared. So like the thing is like, so what would be like one strategic decision that you made you feel like changed the company trajectory? That maybe like, I mean, I think a specific sub question is like, I think you went after all the enterprise as a startup, especially I think you guys are YC too. So like I think it's like when you are a startup, I think like most of yesterday we have like the quirky guys, not guys, but like it's like one of the co-founders are women. So like it's like the quirky people on, and then basically they went after all the SMB like a slash like like a startup insurance. So like it's like they start with a smaller company so that they got, I guess, like the revenue. It's like a lot faster. It's like you're solving yeah, I guess like you were solving like a fundamental problem. Like I think you went the opposite with like basically I wouldn't say logo shop, like you guys have like all the big logos, right? So I'm just curious, like how do you think about like, is that like a strategic decision on like you have like, you know, 10 whale client but they're all whales, or but like it take like 5 years to onboard them, or like is it like a strategic decision that you made, and then why or why not?
Okay, I'll give you two like important points. So like important strategic decisions. So one is the one you talked about. It's actually in the middle of Y Combinator. We like, look, if we sold to startups, like YC is the ultimate hack. I mean, it's like the most amazing way to start a company and sell to other startups. And so at every moment we were tempted. And we have people, early founders, reaching out to us all the time, right? And like what we found is like, you know, we only have so many hours in the day. What are we going to focus on? We got one big logo in before YC. Is Weight Watchers. They're still one of our best customers. We love them, right? We got them in, and that halo effect of having them is really, really just like was so important.
Got them in. We had their CPO on our podcast before.
Oh, nice, nice.
So, OG guest, but yeah.
So how do we get? Great question. So my advice, by the way, for early founders, you're trying to get logos. Like number one is be absolutely shameless. Like use your network, use the network's network. Absolutely shameless. People root for you if you're a founder, right? It's this like misconception where you like if you're a founder, you kind of want like you don't want to ask because you don't want like to be put a burden on. But like your friends, people who know you loosely, they want you to win, right? And so there's like my generic advice is like activate as much of your network as possible. So what I did,
was
one of my I had an old colleague that I'd worked with at Weight Watchers, and she was there. She kind of helped. I asked her a lot of questions. I did a bunch of research. She introduced me to the folks there that would theoretically use this. We did some demos. They tried it out, and they're like, "This is amazing." And so I like ultimately the product had to win, but use your work to like find the ways in and talk to the right people and learn the right things.
Also, this is so specific, like Weight Watchers, like, and then like you must be like BF of this person. Like, I mean, how would you like? I mean, I feel like
no. I am close to this person, to be clear, especially in case they're watching hilariously. But like, it doesn't require you to be the best friend of the person there who's making a decision. Right. It requires enough of their interest in you to advocate for you, just to get in front of people. It's just like opening the door, right? Like you still got to win it with the product, right? So it's not a freebie at all. But like getting the door is a really hard thing as a startup. And then once you have a few lows, then you can start getting the door better, right?
Mhm.
Because then you can start talking about what you've done with the previous enterprises. So in the middle of IC, we had this, kind of I don't know, big moment, big like we debated it for an entire week. Should we spend the next 2 weeks, because YC is in 2-week chunks, next 2 weeks building a whole bunch of self-serve tool, figure out the pricing, throw a credit card down and do it. And we said yes, and then a day later we said no. So we even waffled on it, and I'm really glad we did that, because it is a divergent path. Now, are we going to do a bunch of self-serve stuff? We have some fun stuff coming up this year that will help activate. But now we have, many, many, many large enterprises. And so now self-serve has a different role. But if you build from early days for startups, you either have to have a very clear plan of how you grow up with them and you kind of climb the company size ladder, or you have to get massive, massive scale very quickly. And so anyways, this was a big strategic moment for us, was deciding to focus and double down on enterprise where we had kind of started. And like the thing is, when enterprises buy, they look for trust. They look for I as a buyer at an enterprise, I don't want to risk my job. Right? I want to trust that this thing's not going to be like vaporware, or like this founder isn't, charismatic, but actually isn't real. And so the fact that you get a couple of logos, you build your pitch, you build your product around trust and reliability, you use examples and case studies to help instill confidence. It's a very different playbook. And so I think that's where we went. There's another big decision as well. And this is another kind of lesson that I take away, if you'll indulge me for a moment, so we have there's two, call it universes of research, so kind of two different. There's UX research, which is all about product research, right? And there's market research, all about big strategy. What does the market think? What market should we enter? What do people think of this new brand? Things like that. They actually are separate departments. And a few points, we got advice. You should focus on one. And I think it's because think about the conventional wisdom is like hyper focus on the most narrow, do it really well and then expand from there. And I think that's wrong. I think that's actually wrong in the age of AI in particular. I think things are moving so fast, things are so competitive, that you actually want to not give up or kind of give away parts of the market to other players or to incumbents or whatever, and that your job is to figure out how to align resources to focus on the whole thing that matters, right? The whole industry that matters. And so this was, not to mention, as I told you before, the core foundation of our product is actually the same. So anyways, that was a big strategic question that could have been much, much worse.
So how do you know who has a budget, and then how does the sales when you read these long AI articles about how to sell into enterprise, there's always you have a champion, you have this person with budget, and then there's the leader who signed off on this, blah blah blah. And then how long does that take to sell to enterprise? I think the thing is also depends on how much budget do you need for this. It's not everybody is getting a 6-figure deal, or so when you're selling something small, I feel you can just have one person with a credit card just to be
Yeah. So $100 a month kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but for 100K or 200K, or anything that's enterprise level of sales, 6-figure deals, you must go through at least 3 people at the company, right? So
yeah.
How does it how do you identify who specifically we should go after? And then when you're code DMing people on LinkedIn, what do you even say to them, to be hey, by the way, I need your feedback on blah blah blah? It's asking for feedback but actually turn them into customer.
Is the question about early days or today, right? Because it's a very different answer.
I think maybe both. Let's start with early days.
Because today, honestly, what you're reading in sales books is it's not wrong, right? It's actually I think what I've learned over the last 3 years is that these traditional sales practices, and I can talk about them, they're not wrong. There's some nuance because of AI, but it's very much real. But early days, I 100%. There's basically my best advice for how a new founder would get at enterprise users is kind of there's the cold outreach, and you really gotta do enough volume that you get enough responses, and you also have to appeal to the fact that you are a founder and that you want feedback, you want to do research, and you're working on something. And you also want to use your network heavily, right? Honestly, early days, I actually did very little cold. Now, I was lucky. I have experience in the field, so I actually know a lot of people in the field, and that helped, bootstrapped a bit. And then they told people, and other people told people, and so we were able to get a little bit of that. But you gotta lean on the fact that you are the underdog and take every cheat code you possibly have. But the other strategy is events, and I think this is even still underrated, live events. So it can be hard because sometimes your buyers are distributed, but the playbook here is host an event, let's just say in San Francisco, reach out to people, cold DM them to ask to be a speaker, right? So somebody who's more senior, who could be your buyer, but you're not asking them to buy your product, be a speaker. You're trying to host a panel on the future of AI in fill in the blank, right? Pull them in, get one, use that one person to reach out to others, say, hey, we already got, Grace is already going to be on the panel. Do you want to join her on the panel? And they all have good resumes, whatever. And now you're building a relationship with 3 people right there. And then they invite their networks to your event. And now you just created a 50-person event, probably cost you a couple $1,000s, right? And now you've put your name out there and associated it with 3 very experienced panelists and a whole bunch of audience members. So we actually did that. We did that. This was fall 2023. And some people some people who went to that event, both speaker and otherwise, have become some of our biggest customers. That first event. So in other words, I think that's another hack kind of is to create live experiences that people actually value. Focus on the value. Don't even pitch them in the event. Be the one bringing that value.
I love that.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
well,
exactly. Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. Wait, you go first.
Okay. So the thing I was gonna finish that I didn't mention, once you're actually engaged in the sales process with an enterprise, there is basically 2 phases. You got phase 1 is getting them to say yes, and phase 2 is procurement. And that procurement, you gotta power through, and that is obviously where it's rough, but it also forces you to design your archetype, design the way you talk about things, to be to actually address the concerns of the procurement team, whether it's security, privacy, an AI task force to evaluate, ethical uses of AI. We've seen everything. We have seen every version of this. The legal team, not, maybe not understanding as much kind of what you're doing, and it trains you, and you get good at it, and you're fast, and they love that. You'll return their questionnaire in a day, even though it takes them 3 weeks to get on the phone for the next step. So procurement's part, and the sales process, I just read the sales books. I mean, you just find the decision maker and convince them you're better.
Wow, deep. Okay, so how long does a procurement last? Procurement meaning you just have to go through the hurdles of signing this, going through their database,
okay, so
vendor thing, or
if you actually think it's interesting, I can let. So basically, procurement is the process by which a decision maker says yes to they are onboarded, and period. For a startup is a day, right? They say yes, they sign it that evening. For a company, that period can be 6 months. Sometimes it, usually it's less. To be clear, it's usually I think 2 months, 3 months. That's much more common. But yeah, I mean that is the process of their security and privacy team kind of looking at your data processing agreements, looking at you'll answer a questionnaire about where data is stored and how you're handling data, and review it and give you feedback and ask questions. So it's that process. It's the legal process where you're negotiating red lines on the actual paper. They will almost always want to push back on your on the MSA you give them or whatever. And then there's sometimes there's kind of more budget approvals above a certain threshold. It has to go up to the VP or the C-suite person, and so it's just internal bureaucracy. That's what it is.
The problem is, I think for that, obviously you need a champion to tell you, you have to text them, be like, hey, how is it going? Blah, blah, blah. You take them out for like coffee, blah, blah, blah. And then like you have to be like, when is this gonna sign? And then they have to ask these like 5 other people. And then that's the problem of enterprise. And then also like the budget cycle is like, oh, we only pay the first or the last day of the month. And then you have to wait for 2 more months. And then like blah blah blah. Like and then like the reporting, it's like you have to write some sort of report for that person to sign, for their boss to see, and then like for like 40 other people to like approve at the same time. Like it's like a lot. And like, but how do you kind of accelerate the speed? And then how do you like, I think the other problem is like, how do you manage like the enterprise account? Like, do you do like an Excel sheet and be like, I'm sure there's like another AI tool, AI agent that's it for you.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
Like, how do you like
I mean,
this kind of like work?
Okay, so there's a couple things. Like, I mean, yes, procurement is that complicated because 17 people have to be involved, and then each of them takes 5 days to respond to their email, and like getting on calendars is a mess. So yes, that's all true, but like there is always a way. If they want it bad enough and you have the person demanding it, it will happen, right? And so yes, you have to be patient sometimes, and yes, you have to text your person or email a lot, but like there is a way. And so if you are endlessly stuck, like literally no path out of procurement, again and again, then they either it wasn't enough, or you need to shape up your technical architecture to be more in line with what procurement teams need to see. So there's always a way. I wouldn't overthink the fact it's mostly just process. It does work eventually. It just takes time. And so the real question that if you're like a founder to think about selling to enterprise, that you need to ask is, are contracts going to be big enough that you can stomach 90 days plus every contract? That's a lot of work, right? And not to mention, Grace, to your point, to manage the account is a lot of work too, right? Because you've got Excel sheets of all the different users across all the different teams and what they need, and right. So I think I'm trying to take it meta. Like the meta question as a founder is like, either are the contracts themselves big enough, or do you believe they will be big enough to support an enterprise operation? And early days, it was a question mark, right? But as we learn more, even early days where we still didn't have giant contracts like we do now, even early days, we're like, we actually believe this can be, is that we believe this will be like big 6-figure contracts, if not 7, as we build out the platform, as the industry kind of adopts and moves towards this, and it has, right? And so I think that's the kind of takeaway for on the enterprise.
Okay, so I love that. Basically power through life. Let's like wrap with like a 1 minute.
I don't know if that's the whole takeaway, but we'll go with that.
Okay, let's wrap with a 1 minute fire round. I know we have like a hard stop at 11:30. Okay, what's your favorite book?
My favorite book. It's I always go for the classics, and it's my 3. It's like Sun Also Rises, Hemingway, and Great Gatsby obviously is like those 2 always I reread like every 2 years, and there's just something like beautiful about them. I just love them. So there's nothing to do with tech, if that's what you were going for. My favorite tech book.
Okay, yeah.
My favorite tech book is Hard to Think About Harder Things. Like I read that for ago. It helped kind of the Hard Thing About Hard Things helped me like see pretty like the kind of brutal truth of starting a startup, and I still wanted to do it, and I was actually more excited to do it. And like I think that's like it broke down some of the mythology of it, which I like.
Who would you invite to your dinner party?
Other than Grace Gong?
Dude, I know you're going to say that because you know who was the most popular guest on this show? It's like people always say it's Elon Musk and me, so we're like there.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I don't actually have a good answer to this. I don't know what I would say. I actually worked at Tesla and for Elon for a little while, but like I don't know what I would talk to him about at a dinner party. I would be very fascinated to listen to his all sorts of parts of like just listen to his journey, listen to what interesting challenges, but he's not going to talk to me about that at a dinner party, right? So I don't like kind of look at like tech moguls as like the way to do it. I find more interesting people that are like exploring interesting parts of like science and the world, and so I don't know. I don't have a good answer. I'm gonna pass on that one. Other than Grace being the answer.
Thank you. Oh my God, I feel so flattered. I competed with us and all that stuff and win.
Yeah, that tells you that you're at the same level as it.
Oh my God. Who made the biggest impact in your career?
Just for the audience, you did not pre-give me these questions, so this is live thinking.
Yeah, it's live.
I mean, I think there was one particular manager I had when I was like right out of college as a consultant, and like she just gave me very, very hard pointed feedback constantly, and like in a good way, right? Like, and it just like it made me from I think I was a kind of mediocre, like I think I was, and like it just like re-lifted my kind of, I don't know, is like my own sense of pride in my work and my own kind of like self-criticality. It just like something kind of shifted. I was like just impressionable enough at age 23 for that really to like work. But that was a really good one. The other one is like, I'll say Jack Altman is like my bestie from childhood. And like he and I were both in New York doing our own, like he was, you know, I was doing consulting, he was in investment banking. And he moved out to Silicon Valley and got a job, and he was at Teespring at the time. And I was like, I wonder what this whole startup thing's all about. I went out and visited him, and I spent a day shadowing him. And I was like, this is what I want to do. And it wasn't about being a founder at the time. It was just being in a startup, being in the like, I was like a board consultant. I mean, wasn't that, I don't want to, I was not the most consultant at that point. Like there was this like separation between my work and my impact. And I visited him and I watched like them just make fast decisions and create huge impact in a matter of a couple of hours sitting around a ping pong table. Like it was just this like perfect single day of like, that is where I want to be. And then like within half a year, I had moved out to San Francisco, got up at Pebble, and was like, the rest is history about, you know, me in tech.
Me in tech. Love that.
Me in tech, not me and tech, but either way.
You in tech. Okay,
me
perfect.
Tech. Yes.
Okay, I love that. Where can we find you also at work?
Well, if you're watching this on LinkedIn, you're probably already seeing my LinkedIn, but LinkedIn. So,
Yeah.
wait, did you mean like where on socials to find me, or you mean like what am I doing outside of work?
Like, do you like tennis or something? Like, what's like?
Like, no, all I do is write LinkedIn content. So no, I'm just kidding. Okay, I was answering the wrong question there. The right answer to that question, I pretty much do nothing else because I also have I have a 4-year-old at home, and so I am a dad outside of work. That's pretty much it. I just like occasionally go to the gym, you know, like I go and once a week I will play ultimate frisbee. I have there's a pickup league that I'm in, and I will just join. And I've been doing that since high school, and I played in college, and like that's my, you know. But I used to have lots of hobbies. Then I had a kid and a startup at the same time, and I was like, you know what, hobbies are gone, right? Friends, I mean, friends are around, you know, when I bring the kid to other kids, you know, like a little bit, but like pretty much it's family, work, and like to some degree physical health. That's about it. It's about as much as I can handle right now.
I love that. Well, Aaron, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was such a master class in enterprise sales and UX and like interview and like research and stuff. And some of that.
Well, hopefully it was fun and interesting for folks watching. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Let me quickly end stream 1 sec.